to be entirely honest with you, I'm not sure why some people choose to call this a fireside chat. If there was a fire beside us on stage, I don't think anyone would notice the chat. Speaking of noticing things, Mr. Kant, one of the first things that someone notices about you is the buzz and young energy that surrounds you. Not many people know this, but if one comes to your office, one is greeted by a battalion of young professionals who have left high-paying jobs from all over the world and have come to invest in the dream of Incredible India 2.0. We would like to know, how are you retaining and acquiring top talent to build Incredible India 2.0? And as someone who's devoted their entire life to public service, what's your advice to the nation's youth?
One of the things Prime Minister desired to start with in Niti, which is the National Institution for Transforming India, was to allow lateral entry into government. And I think we were the first institution to bring in a lot of young people. I mean, we brought in we started a scheme for young professionals. So we have over about 100 odd young professionals. We bring in a lot of public policy specialists, people who've left Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Oxford, to come and work with us in Niti Aayog. So we have a lot of young energy, and they're the ones who are really transforming Niti. They're the ones who think fresh. They bring in a lot of fresh ideas. Their approach is basically disruptionist in nature, and that is what I think India needs right now. So Niti Aayog is really buzzing with young people.
Mr. Kant, today you spoke about India's young demographic. 422 million Indians are below the age of 18. 70% of our population is below the age of 32. What is often left unsaid about the aspirational districts program, which you spearhead, is that it's actually targeted towards helping India realize its demographic dividend. The 49 indicators that you monitor are prerequisites for achieving this. In your book, on page 161, if I'm not mistaken, you mention a cooperative competition and competitive federalism approach. Would you like to tell us a little about how you're using this?
So one of the key philosophies of the Prime Minister was that we must make the states compete. And we started off by doing ease of doing business. And then we soon realized that this model about outcome-based, So when I was doing ease of doing business, I was Secretary DIPP. And actually then the Chief Secretary Chhattisgarh, and we were ranking states. He came to me one day and he said, we are coming actually third. And he said, I've done a lot of work, we've scrapped a lot of rules, regulation, we've improved our labor laws. I'm coming third right now. So I opened my computer and I checked up. And by that time, by the time he left Chhattisgarh and by the time he had reached here, he slipped from third to sixth position. So I said, my computer is showing that you're sixth, you're not third. And actually you've fallen over a period of 2 days. So he said that this is a huge challenge for me. And there were just about 6 days left for us to announce. He went back, he tried very hard because, we are making everybody compete on a minute-to-minute basis, day-to-day basis. So he went back, he tried very hard, but he could only come fourth. So what it shows is that everybody is competing, everybody is moving forward. And therefore, we realize that even in education, in health, in water management, everything we need to make people compete on a real-time basis. And we've found this hugely beneficial as far as states are concerned. And now with the aspirational district. But I think what the country needs to do is to really move to the next stage of this transition. And that is a certain amount of our outlays we have to give on good performance. That means in case states which are doing well on health, a certain component of the health outlay should go to the best performing states. And this should be all through a challenge route. So over a period of time, you'll see everybody competing, everybody excelling, and everybody getting more outlays based on performance.
Mr. Kant, you're someone who doesn't only understand the uniqueness of India's challenges, but you also have a vision about addressing them. In your book, you call health to be India's largest governance challenge with a specific focus on nutrition. Well, you have said in the past, and I quote, India doesn't need self-driving cars, we need clean drinking water. And lack of open defecation, clean drinking water, prenatal and natal care are important prerequisites to solve the problems of malnutrition, wasting, and stunting in India. Is there scope for convergence between the Swachh Bharat mission, the Jal Shakti Abhiyan, and Ayushman Bharat to effect this change?
Yeah, huge convergence. I mean, actually the impact of Swachh Bharat will be felt for, I think next 5 or 6 decades. Actually the biggest impact of Swachh Bharat is going to be on nutrition and health. 66 lakh families in India go below the poverty line because they are not able to cater for a huge amount of health expenditure, the tertiary healthcare expenditure which takes place. Many of us do not realize it, but actually healthcare in India can be very devastating for poor families. And therefore, one of the great things that the Swachh Bharat will do is our focus has to be on preventive care. And therefore, while everybody talks about Ayushman Bharat from the reference to the health insurance scheme, one of the big things that this government has done is to put a lot of focus on preventive health care through the Health and Wellness Center, where it has converged allopathic, Ayurvedic, and yogic efforts at the grassroots level. So over 30,000 primary health centers have been converted into health and wellness centers, and they are being digitally connected to the district hospital, so that the doctors are available at the district hospital. They give our advice digitally, and therefore, if we are able to take good care of prevention, and that is what Swachh Bharat and all these new initiatives will really do, is the devastating impact of health problems which happen later. Prevention is the best form of cure.
Mr. Kant, it was heartening to hear you talk about learning outcomes and how growth isn't possible without them today. You often argue that India must innovate for India and Indians. I'm sure some of the challenges that you faced in backward states such as Bihar, where historically higher order infrastructural school provisions have been missing. 2015-16 UDICE estimates said that 50% of schools have access to electricity. In Uttar Pradesh, a large part of the state education budget was devoted to teacher salaries. Are there specific challenges which you faced on the ground, and is there a silent revolution taking place under the aspirational districts program? Would you like to share your experience from the field?
No, so I'm a great believer that like we are doing, what are we doing? We are in the aspirational district, what are we doing? We are on 49 indicators, we are taking data, third-party data. We are putting it in a dashboard, we are analyzing, putting it in public domain, we are making the collectors compete. I think we need to carry this forward from the district to the block, and every state must make the block development officer compete. We must make every panchayat compete, and we must make every member of parliament compete. We should put out the ranking of parliamentary constituencies also in public domain. See, once you've put this out in public domain, MPs will also know how they are performing vis-a-vis other parliamentary constituencies. So data collection, third-party data, real-time data, putting it in public domain, and making everybody compete. Panchayats must compete, parliamentary constituencies must compete, block development officers must compete. The minute competition comes in, we'll start. Everybody will transform.
Mr. Kant,
and start naming and shaming them.
Of course. Mr. Kant, you're someone who's been extremely bullish of India's startups. Today you mentioned Hello English, Imbibe, and Byju's. Do you think India's startup will lead the capture of value in the global supply chain, led on the back of exports, and help India achieve the 5 trillion dream?
No, startups will do a lot of innovation, they will do a lot of disruption, but you can't run a whole country only on the basis of startup. I mean, India has a huge history of industrialization. We have some of the top companies of the world. We have many MNCs operating from here. I think we need to create the best possible ecosystem for manufacturing, for allowing industries to grow, and that would require us to become a very easy and simple nation. We also need to change the mindset of people that, senior levels, ministers, senior officers, their mindset has changed. But everybody's mindset must be that without growth, India can't, without manufacturing, India can't grow, without private sector, India can't grow. I mean, India can't grow on the back of government. India has to be driven by the private sector. And therefore, we must make it very easy, as the government, as the Prime Minister has repeatedly said, that wealth creation has to be done by the private sector. The government has to be a facilitator and catalyst. We must allow them to grow.
One final question before we open up to the audience, Mr. Kant. As a reformer, and the reforms narrative is a quintessential part of the reforms process. It's unfortunately oftentimes lost in the cacophony of conflicting discourse. What can we do to align the discourse on reforms and bring India back to its glory?
No, so reforms are inevitable. I think the government is just pushing for major reform. I mean, just 2 days back, they've announced the denationalization of coal. They've said that large-scale commercial mining is possible in coal. And this is, to my mind, a huge, major structural reform in the economy. 35 years back, we had nationalized coal. We've now denationalized it. So similar thing we've done with GST, similar thing we've done with RERA, similar thing we've done across direct benefit transfer. And I think every single sector needs to be reformed. Mining, coal, agriculture, all these sectors, you'll see a huge amount of transformation and structural reforms in the months to come.
Thank you. I believe there would be some questions from the audience. The gentleman in the front here. Can we have a mic, please?
Good morning, Mr. Kant. So I say I admire your passion or corporate-led experience or corporate way of running Niti Aayog and making different states compete against each other. But I also believe, and I want your views on the same, that while the competition is healthy, is there a method the Niti Aayog is following of imbibing certain important schemes in one state which are successful in other states as well? For an example, like I would say Mohalla clinics are a decent example in Delhi.
So, an aspirational district, in all our programs that we run, we take out the best practices and then we make the best practices available to the other states. So a lot of good practices of aspirational district, one district to other, we transfer to the other districts. And similarly, we bring out all the best practices, say in water management. I mean, Maharashtra, for instance, has some very good practices. So we've in every academic study or every competitive study that we do, you will see best practices being brought out in every area, and so that others can just emulate that.
I believe there's a question at the back.
So good morning. I just want your views on the CSR initiatives, the intentions of corporates to contribute, while the avenues can be provided. And the CSR which is happening in standalone and in very short impact programs can be scaled up with Niti Aayog's involvement.
Yeah, so I think it's very important that, one of the things the Prime Minister has done, for instance, he said that public sector, 60% of the outlay of public sector enterprises should go on education and health in aspirational districts. So we help the districts make these programs and then give them to the public sector. And actually what we should do as a country, rather than diffused programs, some private sector spends it here, some spends it here. I think what as a country we need to do is that whether it's public sector or private sector, every year we need to pick up one area. So we pick up education 1 year, the whole country puts all its CSR in education. The next year, everybody, and we should announce this 2-3 years in advance so that everybody prepares projects, then puts money in water 1 year. The second year, it puts into health. So you'll see a lot of CSR resources getting into education, health, and when private sector comes in, they will make a lot of radical difference on ground.
One last question.
Costs are too high. Two, your industrial tariffs are too high. What are you doing to reduce land acquisition costs and industrial tariffs?
No, so, the land acquisition costs are, which used to be about 15 to 18% of the land, has gone up to about 30 to 35%. Now, you are saying they are high, but that's a conscious decision taken by this country through the parliament to provide a larger amount to the landowners, to the farmers, to the poor who own the land. There's a conscious call. And there's a conscious decision by the parliament. And therefore, my view is that projects which used to be earlier leased out for 30 years need to be spread out over 60 years. And we need to do good quality infrastructure. That I don't think anybody can reduce it's a parliamentary act. Nobody should even think about reducing that. But I think we need to structure projects in a manner where we are able to important thing is not the cost. The important thing is that the process of land acquisition must be quick and speedy.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Kant. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Some lady raising a hand.
One final question then.
You've made only the males ask questions.
No, not in the least.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to know, because AI and all will depend only on the data. What are the mechanisms that we are going to share data and how they will be shared across the various sectors, various governments or various states? How are we going to put a framework around that?
No, I think it's a very important question because, whatever we do, if you have to get size and scale, and that is India's strength, the size and scale and the data. And it's very important to put out data in public domain in an anonymized manner so that our startups and our academicians and researchers are able to use this data. And therefore, one of the things we are trying to do in Niti is to create a data portal where we are able to put data in an anonymized manner, so that all our startups and all our academicians should not be starved of data. But all government departments should enable data in an anonymized manner to be put out so that people can use that data for more innovation and research in India.
Right. Mr. Kant, there was a huge crowd outside. Would you mind terribly signing a book for a fan?
Thank you.